All right, so here I am with Miss Rachel Atwood. She is a political activist, big part of Ottawa County's political scene here. Also, the oh my goodness, I had something that I wanted to introduce you with, and now I'm forgetting.
Well, take your pick.
Rachel,
I
can you give
volunteer for
us?
Ottawa Impact. I volunteer for MI Precinct First, which was our movement to recruit precinct delegates. And I'm
Yes,
also,
that's it.
yep. So that's the organization you want today. But I volunteer for
Yes,
about six.
perfect. And you're also doing Flood the Vote recently, as I'm aware.
Yep, which is a precinct delegate role. A part of the precinct delegate's duties is to try and get the constituents out to vote. And it's proven that precinct delegates, if you have your spots filled, can increase voter turnout by up to 30%. So that's what I'm trying to do this week.
Wow, that's awesome. And so now you started your political activism in trying to fill the precinct delegate seats. Can you just tell us a little bit about how you got started with that?
Well, MI Precinct First, that was a website that was set up, and I was recruited by some other precinct delegates and members of the GOP to help fill in all the empty seats we had in Ottawa County specifically. I had no idea that in Michigan, 70% of our precinct delegate seats for the Republican Party were completely empty, which means that the constituents of the state, that we the people, were not being represented as a voice in the Republican Party. And we decided to make it our mission to fill every seat with just average people that were looking for a way that they could stand up and that they could influence the Republican Party and influence politics in a very easy, simple way. But precinct delegates have one of the most powerful roles in the Republican Party because the precinct delegates vote for internal party leadership, and precinct delegates are the ones that get to choose who ends up on your ballot in November for a variety of roles. So, for Attorney General, for Secretary of State, for board members for the state universities, for Michigan Supreme Court, um, and oh gosh, I feel like I'm missing one. I'll think of it in a minute. But
Yes.
all of those, oh, and State School Board of Education, all
Oh,
of those
perfect.
roles, there's no voter primary for. It's done internally by precinct delegates in the GOP. And if we want the best America First constitutional candidates to be on the ballot in November, the precinct delegates are the ones that are doing the picking for you. And when I understood that and I found out that there were 70% of our seats empty, I joined a small team of us in Ottawa County that were going to pursue informing the public about what the role was and how they could get signed up. And I do know that these same efforts were being done by teams of precinct delegates in other counties around the state in an effort to flood the Republican Party with constitutional, family value first type of people. So we're just looking for average, everyday citizens. Um, you didn't have to pass an interview. If you were somebody that wanted to get involved and you love Michigan and you want to see conservative values restored, you were exactly the kind of person that we wanted.
Perfect. Yeah, that's awesome. I actually first heard about this plan shortly into COVID because somebody in Belding had actually asked me if I was a precinct delegate, and I'm like, "What is that?"
Like, what is
So
that?
yeah, yeah, I had no idea, and she started explaining all this stuff to me, and I'm like, it, basically what you just told me is like all the precinct
Mm-hmm.
delegate seats are empty, and I'm like, "Oh my
You're like,
goodness, that's
what are those?
yeah."
And people would ask me too, what is that? And all you are is you're a member of your precinct and your voice represents all the voters in your precinct. And the average precinct represents around 3,000 voters. And the number of precinct delegates that get allotted to the party depends on how many of those voters are registered Republican and how many are voted Democrat. And we're not running against Democrats on the ballot. In my precinct, we have 6 seats available for Republicans. And then I think there's like 2 seats on the Democrat side. And that's simply because a majority of my precinct are registered Republican voters. And so it requires more precincts to represent their voices. And then the Democrat precinct delegates, they represent the Democrat Party in their own conventions and in their own party. So
Okay.
depending on where you live determines how many openings you have. And on the MI Precinct First website, you can go and you can find your county, you can find your precinct, and you can actually check to see how many spots are in your precinct and if there's any that are vacant.
Okay. Awesome. Now,
Yeah,
you may not have the answer to this, but do you know how the Democrats do at filling their precinct delegate roles?
way better than we do.
Okay.
Way better.
Interesting. So
Yes,
the
which I
Democrat
was
Party, it seems like the Democrat Party is getting their voices represented,
Well,
and they're
they do have their act together. And the advantage of having more precinct delegates is you have more volunteers for your candidates. As a precinct delegate, you're not required to do anything. If you would like to just show up and vote at your county convention or vote at state convention, you can do that. But precinct delegates are encouraged to get involved with signing up to help with being say, a poll watcher, to help with election integrity. We also have access to training to do those things. And precinct delegates are considered to be the boots on the ground for the party. So I'm doing my part by doing some flood the vote flash mobs this week in my community. But the more precinct delegates you have, the greater support you have for your party. So the Democrat Party is doing a better job of that than us right now. Although I will say in my precinct, I looked at my ballot and there are no Democrat precinct delegate representatives on the
okay.
ballot or have represented in the past. So they're not perfect either, but on the whole, they're much better at recruiting volunteers to represent the voice of their party.
Absolutely. So you you mentioned getting out and doing some campaigning. Uh, does that you just been knocking on doors and talking to people about some of the candidates? And
Yes.
which candidates are you supporting?
Well, my choice for governor, although I know this is a very emotional race for many people.
Hmm.
I have endorsed Ryan Kelly months ago. I have a lot of
Okay.
experience working with him and volunteering with him because he is the one who has actually been behind the scenes for medical freedom with being involved with rallies and supporting our work. So he is the governor candidate that we have seen as our boots on the ground. So a lot of us in the medical freedom fight that volunteer for Michigan for Vaccine Choice or for other organizations, we all know Ryan because he's the only candidate that we see. So Ryan Kelly, I have been going and putting little door hanger things on the doorknobs for people for him.
Okay.
Um, and then the next candidate that I support is my Ottawa County Commissioner candidate, and that's Rebecca Curran. She is our Ottawa Impact vetted and endorsed candidate, and she is running for an open seat. She's not running against an incumbent, but she's running against Greg Steginga, and he has aligned with the incumbents and is being backed by a Democrat PAC. Not so
Okay.
good. So
Yeah.
I have gone out door knocking with Rebecca. I helped her get signatures to get herself on the ballot. And next, I'm voting for Brian Van Dusen. He is running against Roger Victory. Roger Victory is a good man who's done a lot of nothing. And I feel that a lot of the incumbents have been a little too go along to get along, and it's time for a new brand of fighter. So Brian Van Dusen will be getting my vote. And for representative, oh shoot, I even forget who mine is. Our congressional lines changed. My representative
Yes.
used to be Luke Meerman. It has actually changed, and the person on my ballot is running completely uncontested. So
Oh,
I don't even
okay.
have their sign in my yard and didn't do any door knocking or anything because they didn't have to do any campaigning.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty easy to win when you're uncontested, so.
I know. I'm like, oh, well, I'm hoping to get to know that representative. And Kirsten Manthe is running for trustee on Georgetown Township Board. That's kind of a weird special election thing we have. Attorney Catherine Henry moved to Florida midway through her term with the Georgetown Township, and um, she was she interviewed for that position. The board voted and gave that position to her, and she's incredibly gifted at surveys and getting community information, putting together the survey, analyzing the data. And the Georgetown Township Board, for those who don't know the history, it was pretty tone deaf and started spending millions of dollars on projects around the community without getting community feedback. We flipped the board 2 years ago, so to get some more conservative spenders in there. Kirsten, now that she has joined the board, for the first time in all the time I've lived in Georgetown Township, I actually received a survey from the board asking how I would like to see the money spent, and even made the suggestion of maybe decreasing how much money the Georgetown Township gets from my property taxes. Like, wait, what? Holy crap.
Wow.
So that's why I'm supporting those candidates. And I got all their signs in my yard, and I door knock a lot for Joe Moss, even though he's not my candidate. He's running in the Hudsonville, Blendon, Jamestown Township area, but he's kind of just a favorite, even though I can't vote for him for county commissioner.
Yeah, I can't either. Mine is Sylvia Rhodey. So I think I've talked to my other county commissioner, Greg DeYoung, and I'm pretty well into Sylvia's camp. Even I haven't gotten an interview with her yet or been able to talk extensively with her, but a lot of the people that I know that have talked to her have said, yeah, she's great. Joe Moss is doing some good stuff. So,
well, Sylvia is the co-founder of Ottawa Impact. So she and Joe co-founded it. Joe's the president. And Sylvia began attending those Ottawa County Commissioner meetings in 2018. She was the one who blew the whistle on the sexual educator of the Ottawa County Health Department that had put content on the website explaining all the different sexual phases of childhood, and even listed that infants experience sexual pleasure and that 3-year-olds masturbate.
Huh.
Sylvia was the one who noticed some very explicit sexual content coming down into the Allendale Public Schools by way of the Ottawa County Health Department. And those Ottawa County commissioners are the ones that have oversight over that. And so she's actually been involved with challenging those commissioners for several years leading up to this election. But I walked with her in their 4th of July parade, and it was super awkward. We had the Ottawa Impact volunteers, and I think we had like 150 of us walking for Ottawa for Sylvia and Allison Miedema, and the float right in front of us was one that was for 4 incumbent Ottawa County commissioners, and Fenske and DeYoung were both there. Do you want to know how many people they had?
I'm going to guess 20.
16.
Wow. Yes.
I counted.
That's awesome.
I know. They and the parade ended up having to split up our floats because it was gonna look so bad.
Oh yeah.
So bad.
I am very interested to see how this election goes. I think Ottawa Impact has it. But
well, according to the door knocking, our candidates have been working their butts off, going to as many doors as they can, talking to people, making sure that they know what's been going on in Ottawa County. And we're getting an overwhelming response at the doors. I know I have been getting an overwhelming response when I get a hold of people. They say, oh yeah, we're voting Ottawa Impact. We need new leaders for liberty. The message is getting out there and it's reaching the voters. And if this was being won by signs, we're definitely winning the sign war with Ottawa Impact.
I've definitely noticed that. They've been up all over the place. And yeah, that's actually what first got me interested in this whole race. So I was like, what is this?
Everywhere.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Greg
noticed
is one of the incumbents that was censured by the Republican Executive Committee.
Yes. I asked Randy Meppelink about that, and he seemed not to quite understand his censure, as with some of the other stuff that's been going on in the Ottawa County Board of Commissioners. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how the seat flip will impact Ottawa County. And
Yeah,
just an aside, is that uh, sexual educator still working for the Ottawa County Health Department? Interesting.
yes. And it's interesting because that content was up on the website for a long time. And funny enough, Libs of TikTok has been doing us some favors. They screenshotted that content and put out a tweet onto Twitter saying, look what the most conservative county in Michigan promotes. Infants experience sexual pleasure. And it went viral. And all of a sudden, it got removed from the Ottawa County Health Department website.
Huh.
But Ottawa Impact had downloaded all those documents and we have them available for you. So it's at ottawaimpact.com that they've made those documents available so that people can still see that lovely sexual phase guide. Oh, and I believe it said that at the age of 5, siblings start experimenting sexually with each other. I don't know about you, but I have 2 brothers. We 100% were not doing that when we were 5.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
that's pretty. That's those are some
it's
wild
like
allegations.
it's like a pedophile wrote this guide. It was so disgusting. So the county commissioners, they can hire and they can fire and they have oversight over those things. So you can better believe that sexuality educator, she will be losing her job day 1 of when that board is flipped with some conservative Republicans.
Good, good. I appreciate hearing that because I've heard
Mhm.
other things about the sex ed curriculum here in Ottawa County, um, things that I don't particularly like. So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on with sex ed, and Democrats have been promoting a lot of this stuff, and it seems like Republicans are just going along. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
it'll
and
be,
our Ottawa County has been a member of GARE for what, about a decade?
yeah,
And I was looking at the receipts, and sure enough, back in 2018, they received money from like a racial equity fund that's actually directly funded by George Soros. And they received that money earmarked in 2018 for creating a diversity, equity, and inclusion department. And that's exactly what they did.
yeah.
So that's something else that we'll see disappearing. That department can go. That can go
Oh,
bye
good.
bye.
Good.
Yes.
I actually I asked the director for an interview, and she came at me with, "Well, we can't record this one because I've got company, and I'd have to talk to our lawyers." And so I just got an email from her. Nope, no recording interviews, none of that live stuff. So we'll see if
Well,
she
that
gives me.
doesn't sound very inclusive.
That's true. That's true. She's not very inclusive of citizen journalists anyway. She might talk to state media, but we'll see if I get an interview from her. Paper, I'll just do it paper and pencil if I have to. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, if you have any questions for her, or any questions that you want asked, I'll give out the email here at the end of the interview. But
I'd just like to know what her employment plan is in January.
okay, yeah, I will.
Where do
I'll
you
see if I
plan on
can.
working next? Probably for the public schools.
Well, she is actually on Ottawa ISD. Um,
Mm, that's right.
so yeah, so she's got backup there. May go into the schools, who knows? Um, so with the college being right here in Ottawa County, um, you said that the precinct delegates have power over who's on the ballot for the board of it, or the board of Grand Valley,
Or,
the school.
um, the ones, no, this is for the state universities. I
Okay,
believe that includes like Michigan State,
yeah.
U of M. Um, there's another one. I have to check it. I know we have them all listed. GVSU might be on there, but I know in our last state convention, the only thing we were voting on at state convention were school board folks run for school board for MSU and U of M. So in this last voting cycle, those were the only two colleges that we voted on. I'm
Okay.
not sure. I'd have to check into if there's different years that the other universities are up for election, but I know that this year we chose the MSU and the U of M school board candidate.
Okay. Now, how do you go about finding out what they're going to be pushing at the university level? Because I've seen a lot of concerning stuff coming out of Grand Valley. I'm actually a student there and going through their education courses. And oh man, uh,
You mean
the
indoctrination courses?
yeah, the things that they're telling teachers to teach are concerning. And I'm actually getting into my final year there. I'll be taking some 400 level courses, so there'll be some interesting stuff there. But how do you go about finding out what the school board members are going to be leading the colleges into?
Well, first you have to find out what trainings are required for those teachers, because depending on the school, some of them have outsourced or even have their own department of a diversity, equity, and inclusion trainer. At Hudsonville schools this year, Julian Newman was hired to teach diversity, equity, and inclusion to all of their staff. And the parents were furious and they FOIA'd the curriculum. Fast forward to the end, the school ended up firing Julian Newman, and Julian Newman was going to be training all of those teachers basically to teach through the lens of white supremacy and racism. So DE&I, same thing as CRT. If your teachers are being forced to participate in mandatory DEI training, that is really going to shape the way that they teach, especially if they've bought into it completely. Now, we don't have that in the Jenison public schools. I'm not aware if all the universities have that in place. I'm pretty sure they do. But even Christian schools, Grand Rapids Christian, my alma mater, employs Julian Newman, and they've been using him for years. And we're
Oh,
seeing
wow.
this same woke culture getting taught in private schools. I don't know if all the parents at Grand Rapids Christian are aware of that, but I wouldn't touch that school system with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely
But
plan on
we need the
homeschooling.
right school board members in to be able to prevent that from being imposed on their staff.
Yes, absolutely. So you are the precinct delegates. Would they elect just the school board members in their precinct then, or in their school district?
Well, the way that works, and maybe that's probably why Grand Valley isn't a part of ours. That's more of that's a community. Like, we don't get to vote on board members for Grand Rapids Community College. It's just the state level ones.
Gotcha.
And all precinct delegates get to vote. At least all precinct delegates with voting rights at our county conventions. We all put our names in for who would like to go to state convention. And sometimes there's more people that want to go and vote than there are spaces for, because we do not have every single precinct delegate of the entire party showing up to vote at state. We do choose a number of them from each region of the state to represent. And
Okay.
the way that we are chosen is supposed to be on involvement and merit. So if you are involved, like I am, with working with candidates, with door knocking, at our county convention in just a couple of weeks, I have said that I want voting rights at the end of August when we meet. It would be pretty shocking to me if I was not granted voting rights. So there is a little bit of competition in there. And then those who do get voting rights all go kind of as delegates of their region, of their county, and then cast their votes. So not every precinct delegate gets to vote, but in many cases, there are we don't even have enough precinct delegates that want to go and vote than they have spots for, which is because we have 70% of our spots are unfilled.
Yeah.
But that's all going to change, because on August 2nd, we have a bunch of precincts that now have more people running for spots than there are openings for. And there are precinct delegates door knocking for themselves, which is pretty unheard of when in the past, you just kind of got in by default because there weren't enough people to even fill all the spots. So this is great. We're gonna start seeing a lot more involvement.
Absolutely. Now, I remember you said that there were a couple, because districts changed, they rewrote the lines, um, that there are a couple precinct delegate seats that don't have anybody running for them. Is that something that somebody could still get into, or is
Yeah,
that okay? So you
yeah,
can
you can
still
get right in. So
really?
in my precinct, when I was recruiting for my precinct, I was the only precinct delegate for 4 spots. So I recruited 3 people to run with me in my precinct. Well, then I found out after filing and we got our ballots in the mail that my precinct now has 6 spots. Like, shoot.
Yeah.
So so I'm trying to recruit 2 people to run as write-ins and just fill out a form and turn it in at the county clerk's office. And I believe you can do it up to just like, oh shoot, even like the day before the election. If you go online, it'll give you the deadline. But as long as you file that before election day, you can recruit neighbors to write your name in. And that's all it takes. But you can't just tell people to write your name in on election day. You will have to fill out a form, an affidavit, where you sign it in front of a notary, and they have a notary at the county clerk's office. You got to turn it in there anyway. You may as well do it with their notary.
Yeah.
So if somebody wants to do that, they still can. So if they go to miprecinctfirst.com, you can check out where you're at. But that website won't tell you. I don't think it's going to show you right now how many people are running right this minute.
Okay.
But people can still run as a write-in. I know in my precinct, I'd like to have 1 or 2 people join me, but
Awesome.
that can happen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I hope you get those filled, and that'd be awesome to see all the precinct delegate seats filled. I know mine are all filled, unfortunately, because when I first heard about it, I looked and I said, "Oh, there are already 4 people in there." So I'm not
Oh, you should have
sure.
run anyway.
I don't know if I have time for that right now, but maybe in the future I might do it. Um, so I think that's about all the questions I had for you. Um, so can you tell us when are you doing the flood the vote rallies this week?
Yeah, so there is a group. Ooh, I'll get the sign. I have it right here.
Let's see it.
Okay.
All right.
Sign. Now, I was contacted by someone from Young Americans First. They were looking for someone to do some flood the poll flash mobs in Ottawa County. And I was like, yeah, I'm your girl.
Yeah.
And they just sent me these signs. This flood the polls, like another one that says choose freedom. The other side it says more choose freedom, which is
Yes.
great. And I've been recruiting people to show up with me. Today we'll be in Jenison at the at-home store. And we're just going to stand on a very busy intersection, trying to just increase awareness that there's an election coming up. When I was
Yeah.
out door knocking last Saturday for Joe Moss, I actually ran into somebody that was like, wait, what? When's the election? I totally don't know what day it is. And I was like, it's August 2.
Yep.
But I'm doing a flood the polls flash mob today, another one tomorrow in Hudsonville at the B2 outlet store, and then Thursday another one in Allendale, and we're meeting at the family fair. But the reason this is so important is because if there are election irregularities, those are only exposed by high voter turnout.
Yeah.
If we can get a high voter turnout, if we have concerns of election integrity, you need to apply pressure before cracks start to form. When we flood the polls and we have a high voter turnout, it's going to force them to cheat harder if there's cheating.
Yes.
This is also to help combat the Democrat crossover because those Ottawa County commissioners are recruiting Democrats to cross over and vote in the Republican primary. The way we combat that is by getting more people out to vote. We are overwhelmingly Republican in Ottawa County. That means if more people show up, we're going to have a better representation for the conservatives.
Absolutely.
We don't want Democrats choosing our candidates on the ballot.
Absolutely not.
Yep. And then they can switch right back and vote Democrat in the main election in November. In some states, that's illegal.
Wow.
Here in Michigan, you can flip-flop back and forth, and there isn't anything in place to prevent that. So I have friends that in the past have voted Democrat that will be voting Republican, but that's because they no longer have faith in their party and they want to support these conservatives. But so there's no way that we can just say, oh no, you're a registered Democrat, you're not allowed to vote, because there are very legitimate Democrats that are choosing conservative constitutional values. But unfortunately, with our races with the county commissioners, they're recruiting liberals to come over and choose the least conservative Republican on the ballot.
All right. Well, if that's illegal in other states to vote one way in the primary and a different way in the general, sounds like that's a project that Michigan might need to look into. Allendale, the Flood the Polls rally, what time are you guys doing that?
6 to 7.
6 to 7 p.m.? All right. I won't be able to be there. I'll be heading down to Kentucky, unfortunately, but I wish you guys the best of luck with that. And
hopefully
Rachel,
I can get a good number of people out to just hold some signs. And then
absolutely.
And these signs are not specifically for the primary, because I will be keeping these, and then we'll do some more flash mobs leading up to the November election, because that'll also be important to have high voter turnout.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Rachel, for joining me. You can find Rachel on Facebook, Twitter at all?
No.
No. Okay, just Facebook.
I had a Twitter account at one point, and they deleted me.
I believe you. I'm about to get deleted too. They're cracking hard down on any conservative. So
on Truth Social, I'm just Rachel Atwood. On Rumble, I am Rachel Atwood. But on Facebook, I'm Rachel Bosscher-Atwood.
All right. Well, Rachel.
And on Instagram, I'm Rachel Atwood Sparkle.
All right. Perfect. So yeah, if you want to follow Rachel, go ahead and follow her on those platforms. And one more thing that I thought I wanted to mention, but it's escaping my mind, as things do sometimes to me. So thank you so much again, Rachel, for joining me. I may be getting a hold of you again sometime, especially after the primaries, and possibly in between the primary in general, to just talk about how things shook out. So
it's gonna be exciting.
It is. All right. Thank you so much again for joining me.
Oh, you're welcome. Happy to do it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right. Bye.